Hi there, guys. It's producer George from the more recent past. I mucked up and I was recording through my headset through OBS rather than my fancy Shure microphone because OBS just decided to fuck me. Just put some lipstick on me if you're going to fuck me, OBS. Anyway, so the first 10-15 minutes of the show are recorded with slightly inferior audio. I notice whilst we're playing the Tulsi Gabbard clip about 10-15 minutes in and then rectify it. So I've done my best to clean up the audio in the first part. So it's much more listenable. But yeah, the problem resolves after a little while. So stick with it because I know you're just champing at the bit for more potential World War III stuff, and you can't miss our absolutely integral analysis of the issue. Analyses, because there's three of us. Yeah, have a listen to the podcast, and I'm sorry, do better, be better. Love you faces, bye.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror.
Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. No time for fucking around.
Yeah, George has a hard out.
I got a hard out. And I got a lot of shit to talk about Donald Trump this week because he may have just started World War III. So, a bomb Iran. Donald Trump has decided to jump into what is potentially a nuclear conflict and has decided to bomb the nation of Iran. Now, you might be thinking, isn't that crazy? Isn't the whole thing that Iran, may be close to or may already have nuclear weapons to some degree? Isn't that a crazy thing to do to a country that is about to or may already have nukes? To which I would say, Iran has promised to just take it lying down and be really chill chaps about it. No, lol, jokes. They said there's a bunch of US military installations all over the Middle East, and now US citizens and all of those facilities are at risk for retaliation. So, what's the word? It's like a blippery blope. I don't know what the phrase is when you go to war.
Slippery nope, I think, is actually the correct term. Yeah.
Sex on the beach, other cocktails. So Donald Trump, famous for, not starting any desert forever wars in his first term, has done an about face and confused his critics yet again by getting involved in another desert forever war in the region, which is a thing for which he criticized Joe Biden. It might not surprise you to hear that Donald Trump is a hypocrite, but I think we should point it out every time it happens, every week when it does happen.
Well, also, Donald Trump, famously has had zero criticisms leveled at him, and none of which, any criticism that you could possibly think to level at him have never been that he didn't start a desert forever war. No one had issue with that. No one had issue with you not starting desert forever wars.
It might be the only good thing he ever did in his first term, which was to not start any additional conflicts. But Donald Trump,
I don't know if it'll be a desert forever war. I think we're getting a bit too far down the line in that front. But it's definitely not going to make every single, person in Iran love America.
Yeah, I mean, they were big fans prior to this, but...
is it going to make them ambivalent to America?
Well, it's funny because
you know what? I'm kind of 50-50 on the guy now.
Their president, who was elected last year, was sort of cited to be a bit more of a, if you can have anything in the Iranian regime, as a quote unquote moderate, more moderate, not a moderate, but just like less hardcore than the previous guy. But I don't know whether after all this that would is necessarily going to do anything or make any difference now. So last week, what did we leave it last week?
These wars always have unintended consequences.
Yes, correct.
And I think the idea that we're just going to go, Trump is just going to bomb the nuclear facility at Fordo, which is done, as well as other nuclear sites across Iran, and they're just going to go, you got us. And there's going to be no repercussions. Yeah. Like, that's a crazy thing to think. And Trump's, out there saying basically like, Trump warns future attacks will be far greater if Iran doesn't make peace. He's trying to act like I'm the deal maker in chief, and this is basically a way of getting you guys to the table so we can have a diplomatic solution. But the diplomatic solution ends, I think, when you start bombing nuclear facilities with bunker buster bombs. So to just take a step back, the way I think Trump has been like pretty seriously manipulated into this position by Benjamin Netanyahu is like actually kind of impressive. So basically, in the weeks leading up to this, Netanyahu was saying, we're looking to do this, their air capabilities are down. There's in this New York Times article called How Trump Shifted on Iran Under Pressure from Israel. It goes into the timeline of, in May they had a call, in April they were calling, Trump felt like he was able to talk Netanyahu down from this position and yada, yada, yada. Eventually, start of June, Netanyahu's like, bro, their air defenses are down. We're going in whether you're with us or not. And Trump's like, you got me. Deal maker in chief, negotiator, the art of the deal. He said, I think we're really going to have to help him. It's like, okay. Yep. Way to stand up for your principles, Donald. And then initially was very against the war, saw the missiles going kaboom on television on Fox News and said, actually, that looks pretty fucking cool. And then all of a sudden said, yeah, I'm responsible for that. Even though just days earlier they were like saying that we know we had nothing to do with that and we didn't know that the Israelis were going to do that. And then as soon as they were getting a bunch of positive press about it, they're like, actually, it was kind of, because of us, we were really helping it out. Because it's like, weren't you just saying 2 days ago that you had nothing to do with it? And then we weren't supporting them, but now we are supporting them. They're actually using American materials to conduct these bombing raids. And like, actually, it was our idea the whole time. Like, he's trying to make out like it was just unable to let someone else get the applause for something. Donald Trump just like rushes into the gap, potentially creating like a much wider conflict in the region between Iran and America. It's bad.
It's not very isolationist of him either.
No.
Which has kind of been his whole campaign strategy was like, America first, we do everything ourselves. Like we're almost like we're not Team America World Police and we want to do all that stuff.
First. Now he's like, it's literally the tagline of his campaign, America first, everyone else last. The idea that, they're trying
to let's not get involved in foreign wars.
Yeah, the whole argument that the Trump administration has been making this whole time up until today years old when they started bombing Iran was like, we need to get out of the foreign engagements that we're already in, including Ukraine and Russia and including, Israel and Gaza and not being drawn into this sort of, and Netanyahu's just played him like an absolute fiddle, gotten him pulled into this conflict, made it feel as though it was imperative upon Trump to... So Israel conducted all these airstrikes over the last week and a half, took out a bunch of Iranian infrastructure, and then they've said, but we need the bunker buster bombs that the Americans have in order to get this Fordo nuclear facility, which is beneath a mountain. And Trump's gone, all right, what can go wrong? So for those who don't know the history of the region, there was a democratically elected prime minister in Iran called Mohammad Mossadegh in, I think it was 1951, he was elected, something like that. The CIA, in conjunction with British Petroleum, conducted a fucking secret coup to displace him out of the power because he was like nominally leftist.
I was wondering how long into this story before the CIA popped up, and that was shockingly quickly.
Yeah.
Like even for the CIA, I was expecting maybe a decade or so down the line in the 70s, the CIA will overthrow a government for the lols.
Yeah.
No, right out the gate,
real quick. Yeah, they were like, he sounds a bit socialist, and he seems to be doing good stuff for his people, so we better fucking kill him. The CIA took him out, which is what led to the Shah being installed, the Shah of Iran, and then the Shah was overthrown, and that's how we got, the current Ayatollah, sort of militant Iranian regime that we have today. So it's like, the idea that you can just drop a bunch of bombs and even if it looks fine, it might look fine on Fox News to see ballistic missiles go boom, and it might even look good in the immediate future. But like Ben Rhodes, who we've talked about on the show before, was a former Obama advisor who negotiated the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear agreement, said like these things might look good for a year or two, but then you don't see the unintended consequences of a year, 2 year, 5 years from now when, conflict escalates or something else happens. Like, you can't predict. Anyone who thinks that they can predict what's going to happen in the Middle East, these little, war hawks like Senator Lindsey Graham, trying to make everyone think he's definitely heterosexual and masculine and wants to go to war. These people who are calling for war do not understand what the long-term consequences of what these actions are going to be. And we know from history in Iran of meddling and fucking around in Iran as the West that long-term, if you fuck around, things will get worse. They will not get better. And I just don't understand, is the only lesson I seem to have learned from history is that nobody seems to learn any fucking lessons from history. Like, oh, who's this Osama bin Laden guy? Let's harm him. Let's trade him up. What could possibly go wrong? Like, the CIA is just... I know we don't hear about all their successes. We only hear about, the massive global changing, world-changing failures of theirs. But, like, it really seems like every time they've gone into a country and gone, oh, should we overthrow this guy and install our guy in there? Some fucking genocide happens, like some fucking horrible sequences of events happen, people die. Like, I just don't know why we haven't figured this out. And as you say, Tom, it's caused a massive rift on the MAGA side of, like, interventionists versus, America First type conservatives. And I've got a clip from Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson. This is how inverted the whole political discussion has become, is that like I'm cheering on Tucker Carlson, which is like a thing I never thought I would do. We can play some of that in a sec. Adam, would you like to say something?
Look, I don't think there will be unintended consequences. Most likely the fact that Iran will now look at the Strait of Hormuz as probably their next primary target. They'll target bases within Iraq,
so
which
the Strait
the
of
US
Hormuz is responsible, I think, for 20% of the shipping
20%.
That goes
20% of the world, 20% of world oil.
Yeah, and a lot of oil.
Yeah,
and so a lot of people are concerned now that obviously what's going to happen with Iran's oil production is that going to affect the price of oil, the price of petrol, the cost of goods. Therefore goes up. Yep. You might have more inflation. Like I saw that there was a commentary that the percentage of certainty for a rate cut for the RBA shortly following this news dropped from like 97% certainty down to 80%. So it has like real world influences on things like that as well.
They're even saying that it's now their first step will be to fire missiles at US naval base, the US naval fleet in Bahrain.
The Iranians
and they're gonna they're saying they're gonna do it. They've just that's what. Well, that's what they're saying. And they're gonna close it to American, British, German, and French ships. So. Yeah, look, Trump has this weird phobia. Not a weird phobia. It's natural, but he's just concerned about nukes a lot. He really thinks about, like, you listen to a lot of his press conferences, the concept of nukes and nuclear disarmament and the fear of nukes comes up in conversation with him quite a lot. Particularly in reference to Ukraine, when they talk about how many Russia's nukes got and we need to take a step back and yada, yada, yada.
Maybe that's a Cold War generational thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think he's predisposed to be fearing the fact that Iran potentially could be developing nukes. Keep in mind as well, the Republican movement and various aspects of the Pentagon have had a hard-on for going after Iranian missiles for the last 25 years. Keep in mind, like they were part of the axis of evil, right? That George W. Bush framed out years ago. So you've got Israel wooing him. You've got his own natural predisposition to being like, oh, what if they get nukes? And then you've got the military establishment and various areas of aspects of the Republican movement whispering in his ear as well. So keep in mind,
hey y'all, you want to bomb Iran? Hey y'all.
Keep in mind, I don't think Trump wants a desert forever war. Like in Syria,
No,
like,
Adam.
where Obama,
no one wants the
where,
Spanish Inquisition. But sometimes you get the Spanish Inquisition when you start questioning people. You understand? Like, this is what happens.
I don't think anyone wants to put troops on the ground in Iran.
And everyone keeps saying, oh, we're not going to put troops on the ground. But the thing is, the problem with being a regional hegemon, right?
Well,
like
this is how
America
Vietnam
is.
started. It was like,
This is exactly how Vietnam started. Okay? And it wasn't even a real thing. The whole like Gulf of Tonkin incident was like their ship got fired upon by the Vietnamese. And they're like, don't do that again, otherwise we're going to start a forever war in Vietnam. And the Vietnamese were like, okay. And then the Americans just made it up. They're like, actually, they fired on us again. Let's fucking go. It's like, because that's what you wanted the whole time. If you're constantly... America is the fucking guy who's like dangling something in front of his sister's face going, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. It's like, okay, but you're like right there in my personal space. So don't be surprised when someone lashes out. And they've got all these military the thing with being a regional hegemon is that they've got American troops in bases all across the Middle East, which are now targets, you know, and Iran would justifiably go, well, you just started bombing us out of the blue for a nuclear weapon that we may or may not have. Like, we would be completely justified in defending themselves. And this is how countries get dragged into fucking forever wars. It's like we never learn our lesson.
But yeah, keep in mind in Syria in 2017, maybe might have been 2018. He did a bunch of limited strikes, similar sort of thing, right? Like posturing.
Soleimani and you know that sort of.
Yeah, like he's not opposed to doing limited strikes for PR purposes or just to sort of satisfy people around. It'll be interesting.
This seems less limited.
Yeah, this is less covert and probably a bit more direct. So, I mean, look, it may well turn into, like, maybe they'll do it again, maybe they won't. I
mean, this happening, I had to double check my calendar for a second because this happened 2 days after he said, well, I'll think about it for 2 weeks and then I'll make my decision. And then today I'm seeing it. I'm like, did I black out? Did I miss 2 weeks? Is it July already?
The zombie apocalypse started. You were in a coma. So the thing is, like, because he's given them advance warning, a lot of the critical components of their nuclear, program refinement have been moved out of the facility. So they've admitted that there's quote unquote limited damage to the facility at Fordo, which is probably code for like extensive damage. I imagine these bunker buster bombs are like the Americans are the only ones that have them. And that's why Israel wanted to draw them into the conflict, was to basically get them to destroy this facility because they can't get to it with their conventional weapons. But you're not going to, like, say you do damage the facility, you're still gonna, like, unless you kill all the nuclear scientists in Iran, like, you're not going to destroy the capability, and now you've just pissed them off. If anything, you've reinforced the idea to, the Ayatollah, the head of Iran, that we absolutely need a nuke. Like, you look at Ukraine. Ukraine gave up their nuclear arms to Russia at the end of the Cold War for some security guarantee, saying, "Oh, we'll definitely won't attack you." And what you see from that with Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine is that basically everyone around the world sees what's happening with Iran, and says, fuck, we really need a nuke because they wouldn't be doing this to us if we had a nuke. It's the same calculation that, North Korea has made. It's the same Korea, like all of these other kind of like hermit, kind of nations that are in opposition, the axis of evil, as George W. Bush so eloquently called them. The reason that they have nuclear weapons is because they see what happens to countries like Libya, where they don't have them, or they give up their nuclear and chemical weapons, and then they get, the dictators get, dragged through the streets and then get a bayonet up the bum. Like, these dictators know the position that they're in their country, and it's like, well, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be Gaddafi, right? So I better get a nuke. Like, you are encouraging nuclear proliferation by conducting yourself in this way on the international stage, because now it becomes a zero-sum game for the Iranian regime, and they say, well, we better get a fucking nuke, otherwise, You know, they're talking about regime change. They want to do regime change. So what other choice, from their perspective, what other choice do they have but to develop a nuke? Now, the intelligence assessment from the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, basically has been the intelligence assessment that it's been since 2007, more or less, which is they're doing enrichment. They could scale it up to, nuclear bomb level enrichment, weapons grade enrichment, 90% plus quickly if they wanted to. But they haven't undertaken the weaponization process, which is where you would create a structure and attach it to a ballistic missile. This is what I understand from the reading that we've done this week. Israel says
they're months. They were months away at best.
But they've been saying that they were months away since 2012 when Bibi Netanyahu said they're only months away from a nuclear bomb. So,
and if they were that worried about how close they were, they wouldn't have attacked them in the first place.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because there comes a point of immunity where it's like, oh, fuck, they've got a nuclear bomb. Maybe we shouldn't attack them in case they nuke us, right? So the argument that they were like, Iran's both on its knees and can't defend itself, but is also the greatest threat existentially that Israel has ever faced, and we need to strike them first before they strike us in a moral war of, preemptive strike. It's just seems both of those ideas seem so at odds with each other. Clearly, it's just they were doing what they wanted to do the whole time. This is what Bibi Netanyahu has always wanted. He gets hard thinking about this.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where since he's been a young man, Iran has been sort of the enemy, so to speak, or the existential threat to Israeli existence. So, yeah, they're getting what they want.
Should we? What clip should we play first? We were just talking about the DNI and Tulsi Gabbard, so let's play.
I showed Tulsi Gabbard's fucking foot in mouth.
Tulsi Gabbard's foot in mouth disease. So Tulsi Gabbard is the Director of National Intelligence, which is kind of an oxymoron that she's Director of Intelligence when she has none herself. She has made this video. This is not common for a Director of National. I should say the Director of National Intelligence is kind of like an advisory role. Basically, they sit on top of the intelligence community and they provide information to the president from which, for him.
They're a filter. They're a filter from all the for all the intelligence.
I sit across the entirety of the intelligence apparatus. I know what's going on everywhere. This is a position created after 9/11 to say how do we get the intelligence services cooperating with each other and synthesizing information, and rather than keeping it compartmentalized. And that person is meant to offer advice to the president from which they can then make decisions. They're not meant to be advocating particular policy positions. They're not it's not a policy role, right? It's a government, it's a bureaucratic role essentially. But yet here we see Tulsi Gabbard performing what looks like to be the start of a bad Hulu series, kind of like monologue direct to camera, sort of taking a position on nuclear war in Hiroshima. And this is what had on the outs with Trump, which is why he said what he said about the, disregarding his own intelligence community. So
it's not so much this, it's the evidence she gave to Congress, which was the thing that actually triggered it. Yeah.
So here's Tulsi Gabbard saying a bunch of weird shit about Hiroshima.
I recently visited Hiroshima in Japan and stood at the epicenter of a city that remains scarred by the unimaginable horror caused by a single nuclear bomb dropped in 1945, 80 years ago. It's hard for me to find the words to express what I saw, the stories that I heard, the haunting sadness that still remains. This is an experience that will stay with me forever. This attack obliterated the city, killed over 300,000 people, many dying instantly while others died from severe burns, injuries, radiation sickness, and cancer that set in the following months and years. Nagasaki suffered the same fate. Homes, schools, families, all gone in a flash. The survivors, the hibakusha, they carried the pain of extreme burns, radiation sickness, and loss for decades. Survivors of this attack were asked to put in paintings and drawings their own memories and how they felt and what they saw, and those paintings and the suffering that they conveyed, the pain and the sense of loss were almost more powerful than the photos themselves. Yet this one bomb that caused so much destruction on Hiroshima was tiny compared to today's nuclear bombs. The bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima had a yield of just 15 kilotons of TNT, whereas today's nuclear warheads range in size from 100 kilotons to over 1 megaton. A single nuclear weapon today could kill millions in just minutes. Just one of these nuclear bombs would vaporize everything at its core: people, buildings, life itself.
The Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, apparently.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What are we watching? What is happening?
Yeah, just dropping a VFX shot of the Golden Gate Bridge getting blasted by a nuclear mushroom cloud.
It's all right, Tom. It's from Science Time, so it's all right. What the fuck, Tulsi? Anyway, do we keep going? Yeah, there's a little bit more. It gets crazier.
Yeah. I mean, does she have a point at the end?
And a nuclear war is bad.
The shockwave would crush structures miles away, killing and maiming countless people. And then comes the fallout. Radioactive poison spreading through the air, water, and soil, condemning survivors to agonizing deaths or lifelong suffering. A nuclear winter could follow, with smoke and ash completely blocking the sun, plunging the world into darkness and cold, killing crops and starving billions. Acid rain would scar the earth, wiping out entire ecosystems. This isn't some made-up science fiction story. This is the reality of what's at stake, what we are facing now. Because as we stand here today, closer to the brink of nuclear annihilation than ever before, political elite and warmongers are carelessly fomenting fear and tensions between nuclear powers. Perhaps it's because they are confident that they will have access to nuclear shelters for themselves and for their families that regular people won't have access to.
It's the elites. The elites are going to live in fallout shelters like that show, Fallout. It's so crazy. What a crazy thing for the DNI to be fucking getting on a YouTube page and saying.
This came out 11 days ago. So
Yeah.
she gave evidence like the other day to Congress. And this is the quote from the ABC article. The IC, which is short for intelligence community, continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized a nuclear weapon program that he suspended in 2003. Interestingly, Donald Trump's response to this was, "Well, she's wrong."
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care.
I love
No,
what,
he said the exact
intelligence
words were,
community is
"I don't
wrong."
care." And my intelligence community is wrong. I don't care. They're pretty close. Which is like a crazy fucking thing for a president to say about their own intelligence community.
Yeah,
Can I just say?
don't care. Yeah, I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one.
Yeah.
Like, based on what then, Donald?
Yeah, based on what, if not your intelligence community? Yeah.
Yeah, all the information
Benjamin's
you're getting,
advice.
yeah, all the intelligence that you should be getting is coming from your intelligence gatherers, who you just said were wrong. So he's like, "Nah, I feel it in my bones."
So he said that, and there's obviously been repercussions since then. And Gabbard's now starting to walk back her comments. This is prior to them bombing it. Walking back her comments, saying, "Oh, they've been taken out of context. My evidence was taken out of context."
Yeah, because she realized she's out of the inner circle because Trump's having all these, sort of war room meetings, and apparently she's off at National Guard service or something like that. The DNI is not involved in these discussions. Which is fucking crazy.
They're making decisions politically.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then so the next clip, if you want to cue up the Tucker one, which I think is interesting, it's a good example of the MAGA,
MAGA universe going to war with itself.
MAGA universe. If you say that Tucker is perhaps on the MAGA side of things and Ted Cruz is perhaps more of a traditionalist,
neocon sort of.
It's a good little sort of juxtaposition of opinions perhaps within that Republican circle.
What fifth circle of hell are we currently that we're circling the drain of that I'm agreeing with white supremacist replacement theory espousing Tucker motherfucking Carlson. Unbelievable. Anyway, here we are. Here's the two worst people you know making points.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
Israel.
High
stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, Tucker's just getting him in a spin there. I mean, what Ted Cruz is saying is, obviously we've been supporting them with intelligence for the last fucking several years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good little microcosm of the insanity that's currently persisting within the US administration at the moment. So look, it's obviously they've done this for political reasons, really. And as you said, George, he's been, sucked in by Netanyahu and whatever other elements are sort of pushing him towards this. And yeah, there will be ramifications. The question is, is the US going to keep? Is it like Iraq, like Afghanistan, like Vietnam? The question will be: is the US going to just keep throwing the chips in, keep doubling down in order to, achieve whatever strategic goal, which they don't probably have. They probably don't even have a strategic goal.
It reminds me so much of Iraq in this way. It's like 9/11 happened. It's the drumbeat to war. This has got to happen. Weapons of mass destruction. We got to fucking get in there and do it. And if you don't want to do it, you're not a fucking patriot. And, it's it's the same guys. Some of the same fucking people who were around last time advocating for the war in Iraq are the same fucking cunts. The same people turning around with a straight face on mainstream media going, "Oh no, we have to go to war with Iran. They got weapons of mass destruction. This time it's fucking for real. Trust me."
This time,
I was completely fucking wrong about everything last time. Trust me to tell you the truth and to say that we have to go to this time. It's fucking real. Okay. Unbelievable.
They definitely do this time. Even though it's been publicly said that they don't. They do this time though.
And I'm not saying Iran are good guys. The Iranian regime are bad guys. They sponsor terror in the region. That we know, that they've got some sort of nuclear enrichment program with a view to creating a bomb potentially, right? We know the Stuxnet virus that was released, computer virus that was released by Mossad and presumably the Americans into their computers to destroy centrifuges in 2010. That was done with the aim of delaying this exact nuclear program. We know it exists. It's thanks to Mossad that we even know that the Fordo facility exists in the first place. I'm not saying that it's not a real threat. It obviously is. But you've got to see it from their perspective. They're thinking, we're a repressive theocratic regime. It was pretty unpopular, right, domestically.
Mm-hmm.
We think the US are going to attack us. The only way that we can see to defend ourselves as a militarily inferior, outfit against the United States and NATO and whomever else wants to have a go would be to create a nuclear bomb. That's the deterrent. So, like, it is a completely logical progression from what they're doing. And the Americans have only proven their point because in anticipation of them getting a nuclear weapon, they've preemptively attacked them, without Iran having necessarily done any, Israel's the one who started this latest exchange, right? So the Iranians are naturally thinking, yeah, of course, well, this proves it. Like, we absolutely need to, like, diplomacy's done. There's no fucking JCPOA, Iran deal level 2 because they can't be trusted because we created the first agreement and the Trump administration ripped it up because they didn't care for it because Obama did it. So, like, you can understand from the Iranian calculus, they're going, well, we absolutely need a nuke now. Like, this proves it because if we don't have one, they'll attack us, right?
Yeah, and they just did. Yeah. I think it's crazy, jumping back to the Tulsi Gabbard video for a second.
Yeah.
As to what is her point there? Like, I know the video's whole point is like nuclear war is bad. Like, she's just listing all the terrible things.
Yeah, it could easily
drop a nuke on someone, but
could easily be misconstrued as a PBS, special on the horrors of nuclear war.
But also, but to what end? Is it as a justification for the US to do what the US has just now done? Because nuclear war is terrible, and what if another country does that to us? That's how bad it is. So that's why we got to go in and stop them. Because really my takeaway is like, well, you have these weapons. Are you saying you're going to do this to other countries in the right circumstances? That's awful. This is more a reason why you should decommission your nukes.
The reason, the way I read it was basically kind of like a warning to the hawks in America to back off this confrontation with Iran. That's kind of how I read it because Tulsi Gabbard is part of this more anti-interventionist kind of isolationist wing of MAGA, as far as I can tell. Right, her and Tucker are more aligned than her and Ted Cruz. Right?
She also really hates the elites. Like, there's several interviews where she talks about how
you're the elites.
Yeah, I was going to say
you're the CIA. The director of the CIA reports to you. Okay, you're the elites.
You are the director not only of like a government agency, but like the government agencies that have all the spies.
Yeah.
You don't get more elite than that.
The DNI is one of the most powerful people on the planet Earth, right?
Also, what's your salary, Tulsi?
Yeah.
You're probably both wealthy and powerful.
The elites that have all these secret bunkers. I was like, this is some, like saying, oh, like they're happy to kick off a nuclear war because they know they'll be fine. I'm like, do you know something, Tulsi, that you should be, because you have all of the everything, access to everything from the intelligence community. Are you telling us something right now? Like, is this, are you telling on yourself?
I just think she's probably got a PR firm that works with her, and they've probably just sort of.
Oh, the strings, the swelling music, the strings come in. I was just like, what the fuck am I watching? What is happening right now? It's like an infomercial.
Pete Hegseth has done a bunch of other videos, not as polished as that one. Pete Hegseth has done a
There's no B-roll.
Yeah. No,
this is like
he's done a few chat to cameras.
She's got a whole YouTube channel.
Tulsi's YouTube channel has been like, it's part of her like PR,
branding,
like her surfing, like, I'm from Hawaii, bro, I'm cool. Like, she's got a real like PR thing around her personal image. She's got the whole rogue, like
the silver shock through her hair,
So there's Tulsi Gabbard's.
I mean, it's a great look. Love it.
Didn't she also run for presidential nomination as well?
She did. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So she's
got higher aspirations. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so shit's fucked. Your petrol prices will go up, and probably food and groceries as well, because everything has to go through that region to get to Australia. Have fun with that.
Anything transported around Australia or around any other country is in cars that use petrol, like in trucks that use petrol, all that sort of stuff. So. You want to ship anything from one place to another. Surprise, it uses petrol.
There was a great, just to I think it was Tom's earlier point about nuclear war and who's got nuclear weapons. There was a great Zeteo interview with Mehdi Hassan talking to an Israeli, I think it was a former Israeli defense minister or something like that. Or he's like, hey, so how many nukes does Israel have? He's like, well, I can neither confirm you and all that. And he's like, okay, but like, do you see why it's, do you see the double standard that you have? Like, Israel has a, open secret nuclear program that they've had since the 1960s. They have nukes. They're launching preemptive strike against someone who doesn't yet have, to prevent them from having the thing that you have.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that there's like...
Oh, we'll use them responsibly.
And that's basically Mehdi's point. Is like, how do we know you're going to use them responsibly? Because you're like contravening international law and starting wars, with other people. And by the way, Trump does not have, like, they're using the existing authorization from like the early 2000s with Iraq to conduct this bombing campaign in Iran. The initial authorization of force. Technically, the president does not have the authority to just unilaterally declare war like this. It's meant to be an act of Congress.
A declaration of war. But
okay, but like, it's not. But like, obviously, it fucking is.
I guess neither was shooting Franz Ferdinand, and we know how that turned out.
Yeah,
that was a terrorist act, Tom. That was an act of terrorism.
Yeah, it's it is bizarre how there is this weird double standard around Israel and their capabilities and how they act, and the rest of the people in the region who just seem to be kind of, I guess, disposable to the American eye. Like Tehran, the city, the major city in Iran, it's like a city of like 10 million people. It's one of the most popular, and Israel just goes, oh, we're putting out an evacuation order for Tehran because we're going to bomb it. It's like 10 million people. Like, can they do that? Because they're not from here. They're not in charge of us. So how is that an evacuation order? Evacuation orders. They go, oh, we issued evacuation orders.
Yeah, and that makes it okay.
The most moral military in the world were initiating evacuation orders.
Yeah.
And like, right, but like you can't.
To where though?
To where? Because this is like a city that's bigger than New York City. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
New York City and the surrounding 5 boroughs. It is a huge fucking city. It's got like 10 million people in it. It's like half the population of Australia in a city. And they're meant to go fucking... Where exactly? As though they're meant to be grateful and go, oh yeah, I guess you can blow up my house and everything. I guess I'll just... Like, thanks for the heads up. Like, Israel,
it's the same as what they've been doing in Gaza all this time. If they're like, oh yeah, we say in advance, get out of there. You're like, to where? To where? Like, this is their home. To where?
And you're just going to destroy people's entire livelihoods, homes, everything. Yeah, like I understand the Iranian regime. They're the bad guys. I'm not going to like sugarcoat that. They are bad guys, but. And again, unless you go and murder every nuclear scientist in the country systematically, the knowledge is still there. A lot of the materials are still there. The want to create a nuclear weapon is still there. They've had advance warning, so they've obviously moved a lot of the most important stuff out. That's what I do. If Trump goes, oh, we're thinking about bombing in 2 weeks, I'd be like, great, can we fucking scooch out of here then? Like,
yeah, can I put that in the calendar?
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so we're talking about the 7th? All right, great. Let's make sure we start moving stuff out now. Like, it doesn't actually do the thing which Trump purports, like, what they're arguing it's going to do, which is, like, kill the Iranian nuclear program dead. It's not going to do that. It's just going to piss them off and force it, even further underground to areas where Mossad doesn't have an overview of it and can't anticipate it coming. And then all of a sudden, a year, 2, 3 years down the line, they pop up with a surprise nuke that nobody knows about, right? Like,
at the end of the day, almost like Donald Trump's a fucking moron.
Yeah.
Israel's, the strategic, foresight here is not non-existent. It's ideological on their part at this point. This concept that if we don't hit them, they'll hit us. And the US is just getting dragged along with it. So despite the fact that,
they're stronger leaders, stronger, smarter, better leaders wouldn't allow themselves.
One at a time.
Okay, sorry, go.
Despite the fact that one of the reasons they've attacked Iran is that they're worried about an ideological regime that will be trying to wipe them off the planet. They're basically doing
Sounds like
the same
Israel.
thing.
The last thing we want is a nuclear-armed ideological regime starting wars all over the place.
Yeah.
That's like Israel. You're describing yourself, buddy.
Yeah. They're afraid of themselves. How poetic.
It's oh shit! I forgot the point I was starting to make. It doesn't matter. They are literally, they are being the danger to the region that they are apparently so afraid of, which is just.
And I find that. I don't get. I struggle to understand the Israeli ideology, that hardcore sort of judo nationalist, like I don't.
Yeah, that kind of
Zionist. Like I don't get it. I can't wrap my head around it because it is. A lot of the things they've done since October 7 have just been completely counterintuitive to the long term. So, like in 20 years, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Like in 20 years, what do you see?
They're not thinking about 20 years. They're thinking about 20 weeks. You know what I mean? Like that's the time horizon that we're dealing with. I was going to say the point I was trying to make before is that smarter, better leaders than Donald Trump wouldn't have allowed the United States to get drawn into this conflict. It's been a consistent theme of the last, whatever it is, 3 or 4 administrations that, that Israel was a partner in the region, but they were a partner that needed to be managed, right? It's useful having them in the region to be able to project force, to have insight in getting, sort of information from the Mossad and things like that. But, Bibi Netanyahu's kind of volatile and you need to rein him in sometimes because he's he's been pushing for war with Iran his entire fucking career. Right.
Eventually he's got a cabinet that are all bloody right-wing
sociopaths. All nutso. So, like, a better leader wouldn't have allowed themselves to get dragged into this. I can't imagine if it was Obama in there or even if it was Biden or someone like that, to allow themselves to get, to let the tail wag the dog in this way and allow themselves to get drawn into a potentially, wider conflict. It's what any sensible person would do their utmost to try and avoid. And Trump's just like, sounds like a wider conflict, baby. Deals off, motherfucker.
Well, yeah. I mean, even Obama seems to be cognizant of that. I don't know if you've seen the clip going around lately of him on a panel somewhere saying, like, can you imagine if I did any of this?
Any of this? Yeah.
This was a few months ago. He was talking at a university allowed himself 10 minutes of luxury.
If I was threatening the judiciary, crazy times.
The potential for off ramps coming off this, a de-escalation of hostility seems increasingly unlikely now, and this is how you get escalation. This is how you get stuck into a war. Is when both sides are up against a rock and a hard place. Their positions are intractable. No one wants to negotiate. You don't make peace with your friends. You make peace with your enemies. That's what diplomacy is. That's what there's the whole reason the State Department exists as an entity is to avoid situations like this, because this is what the world was like in the 1800s. Oh, you got that fucking patch of dirt? Oh, I want that fucking patch of dirt. Fucking give me that patch of dirt. Thousands of men die. No. Yep. You got that fucking patch of dirt? No, bro. I want that fucking patch of dirt. And we're talking thousands of years of human history up until like the 1900s and the establishment of like multilateral organizations, the UN, what's it called? The League of, what was the precedent to the UN?
The League of Nations. That was widely ineffective. But
like the whole idea was we have to stop this idea of like constant territorial expansion being the method of growth for our countries. And industrialization happened. They realized, actually, we can make a lot more money just by like building factories and like starting companies. And like you can like the geographical...
You don't need to own the spice trade to be able to make
exactly.
wealth.
You don't need to like, the spice. And this al-Gaib, we must own the spice. Like you can create wealth domestically by having good institutions and starting businesses and like having capital and like secure property rights and all these sorts of things actually are much more effective at creating wealth for a country than just like more fucking dirt. And this is how generations of young men have gone to the meat grinder, is going, oh, we need more fatherland. There's no fucking room for all these Germans. We need to expand. We need more fatherland. And then they start World War II and fucking kill the most people that have ever been killed.
I don't think the US want Iranian dirt necessarily. I think it's...
But you understand what I mean?
I don't think the Israelis even want Iranian dirt.
This is the... I mean, the Israelis are definitely keen on territorial expansion. Obviously not with Iran, but like with their immediate surroundings, annexing, the West Bank, Gaza, building settlements. Like that is very much part of their ideology, is territorial expansion and a greater Israel, right?
Not with Iran.
Not with Iran, but Iran are the key antagonists to them achieving that, right? Because they're the ones sponsoring Hezbollah, they're the ones sponsoring Hamas and all these other existential threats to Israeli kind of existence. Israel does have a right to exist, right? That's always the line that everyone has to everyone needs to say the incantation, oh, Israel's got a right to exist, they've got a right to defend themselves. I do believe all of that. And I think it's a legacy of the Holocaust that Israel and Jews in Israel feel as though there's a constant level of existential threat, that there are people out there that are willing to wipe them out, that they could be genocided at any time, right? I get where that comes from. And it is if you are someone who survived the Holocaust or you have family who survived the Holocaust, I get how that gets embedded into your psychology. But that doesn't mean...
You can't that you can go just forward forever with that fear.
You can't,
fear will undo you.
You can't be, punching first all the time, every time, forever, right?
You can't just be holocausting your neighbor.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't give
whose land you're on.
Sometimes getting a tragedy visited upon you, like it corrodes your national character as well. It does, just because you were the victim of the tragedy doesn't mean that you are then the good guy when you then commit that tragedy on others, on someone else, right? And I think there's something deeply embedded in the Israeli psyche that there's this like preemptory kind of victim complex. We're always right on the edge of being wiped out, and so therefore we need to be the most aggressive. We got to hit hard. We got to
preemptive. It's part of their strategic methodology, tactical methodology.
Rise and attack first, or something. That's their the tagline, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, we've talked about this for an hour, and you wanted it to be a tight show, so I'm going to move us along.
All right.
Moving over to the United States again. I guess it's good news. Mahmoud Khalil has been released from ICE detention.
Yeah, after 3 months. So this is a gentleman that we talked about. Basically, was involved in the Columbia University student protests, as we were talking about on the subject of Gaza. And in March, he's a green card holder. It's not just like they're on a temporary student visa. He's married to an American. He has a wife and a child who he missed the birth of because he was in ICE detention in Louisiana for 3 months. So yes, he's been released because it's obviously unconstitutional to arrest him and hold him for not having committed any crimes whatsoever and making up a warrant after the fact. And so yes, it's good that he's been released, but completely cooked that you could, as someone with a green card, a permanent resident, just get scooped up off the street, and held in an ICE detention center for 3 months without any kind of recourse. Prison sentences for serious crimes are less than 3 months. You know what I mean? Yes, it's good that it got resolved, but the notion that it ever happened in the first place is still completely fucked. And there are still people getting scooped up off the streets and getting hauled off to fucking El Salvador and, detention camps and shipped overseas to, deported to, other South American countries without any sort of justification. I saw a video of a Peruvian woman, who was scooped up in New York. She was just a tourist. And they just left her 12-year-old daughter on the street. There's this black guy that was like, excuse me, sir, she's this woman's daughter. And the ICE agents all balaclavaed up, looking like fucking, heroes, all balaclavaed up. Just hop into a van with this woman who's screaming, trying to get to her 12-year-old daughter who they've just left on the street. They've bundled up her into a car and they all drive off.
Just take her away.
And this guy's standing there with this fucking 12-year-old girl who doesn't speak English has no idea what to do with her, where to take her or whatever. This is just happening on the streets on a day-to-day basis. Like America is still like, yes, it's good insane that Khalil has been released, but like, don't think that means this is all done. This is still happening on a daily basis in America, where people are just getting scooped up for no fucking reason.
Khalil's case will continue. Like it's not like he's free of prosecution. It's just that he's not going to be in detention while they're sorting out his court case.
Exactly. Yeah. So he still has to fight a case, hire lawyers. Who knows how many thousands of dollars that's going to cost, the stress and anxiety that puts on your family. Like, even if you are clearly in the right, which he is, weaponizing the state against a person like this is the point. Even if the state is not successful, because they shouldn't be successful, because what they did was obviously unconstitutional, weaponizing the state against a person like this still breaks their life enough for you to achieve the intended outcome, which is to create suffering against populations of people that you find undesirable, otherwise known as fascism.
I do love all...
Go
ahead. No, what I was going to say was far less important, probably.
It's just this interesting case this week of an Australian man who has had some, I guess, fairly political things to say, not unlike ourselves, of what's happening in Gaza. And he went over to the United States. And when he got to
the writer Kitchen or something, Andrew Kitchen, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but yes, potentially. He got to the customs, and they were like, "Step over this way, sir." They had a whole file on him. They asked for his phone, went through his phone, and basically, they were like, "What do you think of Israel?" Outright, asking these sort of questions.
And because he'd written about the Colombia protests, they're like, it's because of what you wrote online. And they're like, haha, look, we've got evidence on your phone of drug use. And he's like, I was in New York, for some time, in New York, where it's legal.
Where it's legal to buy weed.
I bought legal where it's, I bought weed where it's legal to buy weed. And they're like, haha, we got him. And they turned around and sent him home. And he wasn't allowed into the United States.
We got him because there was something he hadn't declared in the form.
On a form, you literally tick a box saying like, I haven't done any illegal drugs or whatever.
Which he had because it was legal where it was.
Yeah.
But
they had a file on him is insane.
Terrifying.
Yeah. I think he did that writing on the protests. He was in America at the time. So I don't know if it's evidence that they're scouring for foreign coverage of this sort of stuff of a smaller scale, at least. Like, I'd imagine if a fucking famous journalist from another country traveled over.
Did a scrape for all online publications regarding the protests and have just...
there's a file now. Yeah.
He was based in the US at the time when he was doing the writing, and he'd come back to Australia and then was going back over there.
So his name's Alistair Kitchen.
Alistair Kitchen.
Yeah. So it's, if you want to join a Substack, he's got one now, I saw.
It's still continuing. I think the LA riots are still going on, aren't they? Or the riots, or the LA protests, if you want to call them that. They're still ongoing. So, not an issue that's resolved by any means, but at least
won't be for a long time, because Trump doesn't back down from anything, and he's in power for the next 3.5 years.
On that, I understood that the Marines and some of the National Guard are assisting ICE in their ongoing raids against...
Oh, good. That's definitely what they're for.
Yeah,
that's definitely what their purpose is.
Absolutely not what the military is there for. So you can start to understand now why they've got them in there, why they've got why they've deployed the National Guard. It's like, hey, now we can... They definitely don't have any law enforcement responsibilities. It is deeply illegal for them to be doing that.
Yeah.
And yet, there they are rounding up people along with ICE.
And deploying the US military against
domestically
US citizens. Like, because some of them are like, they aren't like properly, as we've seen, evidenced from all the social media stuff that comes up, that they don't check someone's, they don't rock up and assess whether or not you're allowed to be there. Yeah. And then go, there's citizenship proof. Okay, like, never mind. Carry on, good sir. My hat to you. No, they just pinch him off the street. So, you've got...
Yeah, like that woman with her daughter. Yeah, they just grabbed her.
The military just grabbing people, which I think I said this last week, it's what the Second Amendment was kind of for.
It's what all of the amendments are for. It's deeply unreasonable search and seizure, right to a speedy trial, right to face your accuser. It's deeply unconstitutional. This is the scenario when the founders were coming up with the Constitution. This is the scenario that they were envisaging that they wanted to avoid. That's what the amendments are for.
Yeah, for people who fucking froth the Constitution, they seem to love wiping their butt with it. So, yeah, very strange.
All right, dipping back home for the last 2 minutes of the podcast, we've got our social media banned. So, there have been some trials in advance of...
you could call them that.
the government's... the government has some new rules that have come in for social media saying that kids... younger than you need to be older than 16 in order to access particular social media sites. And there's been an amendment to this rule which says you can't rely on
just the yes, I'm over 16 checkbox.
Oh, there's that. But I was going to say also national age proof of ID cards. You can't rely on driver's licenses or other kinds of proof of age cards from the government in order to make you can't require that as a social media service in order to so you got to go, well, how are they going to verify people's ages if you don't allow the social media services to require government identities, which by definition verify the person's age with the government. And so they're trialing all of these different ways of verifying people's age. Now, one of the ways of verifying someone's age is to use facial recognition technology, which I do not love. Scanning children's faces. And of course, it's horribly inaccurate. There's a quote.
Well, scanning anyone's face. I imagine once this kind of comes in, it'll be you have to scan your face to continue to use these social media platforms as well, right? Whatever mechanism that they come up with to enforce this unenforceable rule, as we'll find out, will apply to all of us as well. I assume come December 1 or wherever it is that they're activating it, next time you hop on TikTok, it'll have to prove it. The problem with this facial scanning thing, aside from the ethics that we're all well aware of, is that apparently it was only able to guess, they tested on school students, it was only able to guess their age within an 18-month range accuracy 85% of the time, which experts are saying is not enough. That's not accurate enough to enforce this. But in those 15% cases where it got it wrong, they got them sometimes hilariously wrong.
A decade wrong.
One of the students was told they looked 37. They are a 16-year-old boy.
How weathered do you have to be? Fed up with your life?
Oh, g'day, sweetheart. I'm a sweet 16.
His face is in the article if you want to see him. He's apparently he was guessed as 19, 37, 26, and 23 years old. Just crazy. A 17-year-old girl had ranges between 14 to 32 in some of the cases. So these clearly aren't doing enough. It's giving these kids an existential crisis. One of the children was quoted as saying, my aunt is 32, so being told that I look 32 is awful.
Is quote, a bit insulting, which as a 34-year-old kicks me right in the fields.
Yes, I think, my wife, who is nearing 32, was like, oh, I think being 32 is quite cool. I'm just it hurts us right in the feet.
Yeah, I don't want to be an old fart 32.
But on that, because I refuse to accept that we are no longer funny, the thought I had about this was that what about those of us, such as myself, with our eternal baby faces? People don't guess my age correctly a lot. I'm whenever people play the game of how old are you? And I say, how old do you think I am? And I canvass the room and then blow their minds when I tell them I'm 35. What about if I want to use these social media platforms I am legally entitled to? If I want to hop on and scroll some thirst traps in my Instagram reels, or I want to hop on Twitter and tell women that endometriosis isn't real, or I want to troll some people on Reddit, That is my God-given right. And if this stuff doesn't allow me to, because it's like, oh, sorry, Tom, you have the face of a prepubescent child, I'd be like, excuse fucking me.
As well as the opinions of one. I just want to hop online and say that trans people both shouldn't and don't exist at the same time. That's my right as a white cis male.
Yeah, that is right. That is my right as someone who is over 16 years old. But if this technology is going to guess that it's wrong, just my freedoms. Thank you very much.
Tom, I don't want to jinx it, but if they go ahead with this, I'm just going to say, I think you're fucked. I don't think you're getting on.
You don't think I'm passing for older than 16?
No, I reckon you're going to be...
We're going to have to old you up, Tom. We're going to have to get you a blazer with some elbow patches.
Just get
put some talcum powder through your hair like it's a student production of Mice and Men or something.
Look, I did shave this morning, so it makes me look much younger when I'm freshly shaved. But I also can't grow a beard that much anyway.
Or put some Groucho Marx glasses with a fake big mustache and go, there's no possible way that a 16-year-old could grow a mustache that thick and luscious. He's got to be 37.
Yeah. Actually, if I don't shave, that probably will be worse for me because I just get a bad teenage mustache.
Yeah, you get a little peach,
they'll be like, oh, he's like
fuzz.
15, like tops, with a mustache that pitiful.
Yeah.
So
what's concerning is that this legislation is going to take effect in December.
Yeah. How have they not? They wrote the legislation, they passed it, and they didn't figure out the methodology from which they would actually use to verify. That's what blows my mind. Where they're like, it needs to be older than 16.
It's on them.
Needs to be older than 16, but also you figure out how you're going to do it. It's like, well, you're the one who's writing the law. Why don't you tell me how I'm going to do it, and then I'll do that. What other industry, aside from tech, does the government get to go, yada, 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 details, you guys figure it out.
Yeah. It's frankly insane. Like, I don't know. Fucking... You know what? What they need is to also put this kind of idea into practice for pornography, and no one will stand for it.
Well, if you're doing this for social media, are we really going to have age verification on TikTok, but not Pornhub? Like, that seems like the next logical sort of step, doesn't it? Like,
well, and Pornhub always fight that sort of stuff. I saw an article, I think it was in France. I think Pornhub, pulled themselves out of France to protest the stricter age verification laws that were being tabled. I mean, I don't know the details of the laws, but they were like, no, it's fucked. They were taking the alleged high road because you'd have to do government IDs or this sort of invasive stuff. So they're like, we'll take away all the porn and see how people feel. And, that's usually how you make large sweeping societal changes. Take away the porn and you will see big fundamental shifts in the public zeitgeist.
And you stop the war, and that's literally the plot of Lysistrata.
Yes, essentially.
But yeah, I remember a story where a Pornhub suspended service in some US state that was demanding age verification. Some conservative American state. Same sort of thing. But let's not pretend that it's because they're crusaders for freedom of speech. It's because if they get rid of their 14-year-old chronic masturbators, they don't have a service anymore. They don't have a business, right? If it's just the occasional, person coming on for their monthly maintenance wank, that doesn't, they need people constantly cranking it for hours a day. That's 14-year-old boys right there, I'm telling you. So from bitter experience.
Today keeps the doctor away.
It actually does in terms of prostate cancer, but
that's not important.
Surely the solution here is you just tick the box, but the terms of service say that the parental guardian is responsible for monitoring this.
Well, and then that was what it was already.
They've already got picture checking in Meta, for instance, right? So they just, if they think there's something in breach, they just disable the account and then say upload proof of ID verification, which they already do as well, to prove that you are
under 13.
Say you are.
Yeah, I guess the difference here is that they can't mandate the ID upload, right? Because then we have to give our government IDs to Zucks.
Yeah. I mean, because I remember when we were talking about this initially, it was more like, oh, there's going to be a government ID. It would be like, when you do, there's like verification through Stripe. Like, for example, I traded my phone in recently, my old phone when I bought a new one. And part of that process was you tell them what the phone is. And then there you scan your government ID, you scan a driver's license, you take a couple of photos of your face from different angles, and it goes, yep, the person on the ID is the same person whose face is pictured on the thing, so we can tell that it, this is really them, and, it goes into Stripe or whatever, and it goes off and gets verified, and, like, that seemed to me like a perfectly acceptable way of digitally verifying my stuff online, and Stripe doesn't keep that info. Right, so it's tokenized. So they say. But the idea is you go, okay, this person's identity is verified. It sends a positive token over to the service that I use the service sends it to the retailer. It says, yep, this person, is George. They are. And so you can accept a phone from him. We know it's not stolen because, yes, George matches George, and we know he's the responsible person. The retailer who's getting, who turns around and gives me store credit doesn't get my ID, that happens over on the ID verification side, and they just get a positive mark checked against my name sort of thing, right? So I don't understand why you couldn't have a similar process to that. Just have some sort of national a proof of age card, which already exists in Australia. Mm-hmm. Anyone can apply for a proof of age card. You don't need to have a driver's license, right?
Yeah, to prove your age.
Have a proof of age card, and then it's got to be pictured, sent off, verified by a third party, and then... it just seems like a much simpler solution than all of this fucking around with facial recognition and, they're saying, oh, we to do it by like gestures and the words that they use, and we'll try and make an inference, or like we'll try and look at the pictures. I'm like, all this stuff is so much more invasive than just looking at my fucking ID card. You know what I mean?
Are you saying if I hop on Instagram and in a video say Riz, they'll be like,
no cap, fam. And just, the SWAT team bursts through the window. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway, I need to go get dinner on. This has been Unnatural Selection, a show about newsy type stuff and things. We have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that are ruining the world, that have, do, or ever will exist, at our handle, at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother-flipping TikTok, but only for those plus 16ers. Make sure you follow me on... Not because there's anything spicy. I made it sound like an OnlyFans or something. It's normal, nothing wrong with the content. I just move on. Make sure you follow me.
Wrong with OnlyFans content?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, like, there's nothing sexual about the content. Anyway, make sure you follow us on our social medias, which are completely clean, at George Tsibos, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Make sure you follow Tom at whatever.
Tom.Heath on Threads, which, it's up to you whether you find it sexual, I guess. Like, who am I to...
Yeah, anything's porn if you masturbate to it. So I suppose, Tom's pictures with his cat, if that really... I feel like I've really... it's gone off the rails in the last couple of minutes of the show. I don't know how to get it back.
My pussy pics on Threads.
No, that's Adam. Please take us out.
And my name is Adam, and you can follow me down to checking out Tom's pussy pics on Threads.
They're pretty cute.
I have a job. People listen to this. That's hopefully the extended Iran nuclear chat will have tuned out any people that might be listening. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week, provided we've not embarked on a all-out nuclear war, in which case we'll drop an emergency pod, I guess, before the world ends.
We'll just we'll follow Tulsi Gabbard down to her trying to...
Well, she knows where the bunkers are, clearly.
She knows where the bunkers are, so... Yeah.